Welcome back to another lesson. Today we're going to talk about quality management. How do we define it? How do we define what quality is? How do we manage it? How do we assure it? How do we make sure that quality is happening? So quality is the invisible backbone of any successful project. While meeting deadlines and budgets often steal the spotlight, it is the consistent delivery of high quality work that builds trust, establishes reputations, and ensures enduring success. Quality is key. You have to make sure that what you are doing is of a high standard. But how do you do it? This is what we're going to look at. So at its core, quality management is the science and art of defining quality standards, ensuring deliverables meet those benchmarks, and refining the processes to achieve optimal efficiency and performance. So this happens across the board. You know, it's easy to see in things like manufacturing and product development. They'll have quality standards which something needs to meet. If not, it doesn't make the cut. But the same applies for delivering a project, for delivering a service, not just a product. So we're going to have a look at some key tools on how to do this. So, 3 pillars of quality management. You can break it down into 3 sections: quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control. So often you'll hear these get shortened to QP, QA, and QC. So planning is where it all starts. How do you establish your standards and processes? How do you plan for what your quality standards are going to be? What do you need to put in place to ensure those standards will be achieved? So it mentions on the side there. Example, when building a pharmaceutical facility, the project must meet stringent FDA, Food and Drug Administration, compliance standards. That's going to be your quality planning. You know the benchmarks that you need to hit. You're using industry practices, key performance indicators or KPIs, and using checklists for required regulatory compliance. So whenever you're dealing with regulatory compliance and government agencies like the FDA, you'll have a very stringent checklist of the quality that you need to adhere to, which can make quality planning quite nice and easy if you already have the predefined benchmarks. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have to create those benchmarks to ensure your own quality standards are being met. That then moves on to quality assurance. Proactively evaluating processes to ensure the project is performing effectively and achieving the desired quality. So this is a constant thing. You're constantly working to ensure and assure that your quality standards are being met. So example, running regular reviews during software development to ensure design and functionality specs are consistently met. And this is just a constant process throughout the project that you need to be taking an active approach in, making sure that your quality standards and benchmarks are being adhered to. Now, quality control is more of a defined output. It is a task at the end of a deliverable. You need to then test and do a physical end-to-end test to confirm and put a stamp of approval on that they meet those certain standards. So for example, with the FDA example that we had earlier, you're going to go through a project, you're going to be running QA throughout, making sure that everything you're doing is to the FDA standard, but at the end you're then going to run QC. You're going to run a review, you're going to run a test, an inspection, whatever that may be, whatever that looks like, to then put the seal of approval on it at the end of QC and pass it through quality control and say this has passed, this meets the standards, this is good to go. And as it mentions there, these pillars emphasize comprehensive planning, ongoing reassurance, and then meticulous testing, which creates a virtuous cycle of improvement. So it's always about constant movement, improvement, and getting better. And at the end of every project, we've spoken about this before, lessons learned. What lessons did you learn in the quality department? How was your planning? How was your assurance? How was your control at the end of it before you delivered? Can it be improved? So, ensuring deliverables meet quality standards. So a project deliverable that doesn't meet the agreed upon quality standards can severely damage stakeholder trust or derail the entire initiative. If you're working on a large project, we'll go back to that example with the FDA, if you get to the end of it and your planning or your assurance or quality control wasn't up to scratch, and you've delivered an entire project that doesn't meet FDA standards, there's going to be severe repercussions. Stakeholder trust, if something like that's happened, it could be irreparably damaged. That could be a relationship that does not continue. So defining quality requirements. So begin by capturing explicit and implicit project requirements through detailed stakeholder consultations and technical specifications. So very similar to what we've done before. When planning a scope of works, you also need to bring in the quality standards. It's not only about the deliverable itself, it's about what quality does that deliverable need to be. So the application of standards. So there are international standards like ISO 9001 or other specific industry standards. So in software development, CMMI, they will act as benchmarks to ensure uniformity and scalability. These are standards that will impact everything you do in a certain industry to maintain the quality standards of the whole industry. So customer-driven quality, focus on what truly matters to the customer or end user rather than the fulfillment of internal benchmarks. For example, healthcare providers emphasize zero tolerance for service errors. You can't deliver something that has issues or bugs. I know that sometimes it does happen, but the strive has to be towards perfect quality, and that is achieved by planning, assurance and control at all points of a high standard. So traceability matrices. Use traceability matrices to align individual deliverables with quality benchmarks, actively tracking compliance across the life cycle. So from start to finish, making sure that everything is documented, everything is clear from start to finish. So tools and techniques for quality management. I do like these ones. So you've got the fishbone diagram, which is a really good one. And it helps you get to the bottom of a root cause, because sometimes it can be difficult to know exactly where your problems stem from. So you can see in the bottom right there is a fishbone. So the head of the fish is the problem. And then what you do is you then categorize everything that could be the potential problem. That will then enable you to go in and focus in more detail and try and break down the root causes or secondary causes as to what's causing the issue. So it's all about listing all potential problems, which by understanding what they are, lets you focus on those elements, get into a bit more detail and find out where the cause lies. Now Six Sigma is a methodology, and it's all about making the process lean, reducing defects, having everything working as smoothly as possible. And they use that with DMAIC. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So they use those to really understand the end-to-end process and the journey and remove as much waste as possible is the key kind of ethos of Six Sigma. And then Pareto analysis. It looks to identify the 20% of factors causing 80% of the issues. What this then does is allows you to focus resource. If you understand essentially what your big ticket items are, what can you put resource into which is going to solve the most problems? What's going to be the most cost effective and resource effective method for reducing the number of issues that you're seeing? We've then got the Six Sigma process steps, which obviously we mentioned earlier. But Pareto analysis is really good to kind of knuckle down on the most cost efficient and resource efficient methods for reducing issues. So we've then got a little bit about control charts, which we'll have a look at on the next slide. So they are visual tools to constantly monitor variations in output and improve consistency. So data points, those are your points which represent essentially what's going on. You're then going to have your control limits. So upper control and lower control. These are the boundaries that show you an acceptable range. So if you've got a data point within these two lines, it's okay. If you've got data points that exist outside of your control lines, then that indicates something that needs to be looked at. That's beyond control, that's beyond your acceptable limits and thresholds for what you should be seeing. And the center line is the average value, so that's where you should be. We can see one there down at the bottom. So you've got that center line, which runs through. That's the average. That's kind of where you want to be, in and around the average. You've got the upper control, you've got the lower control. As we can see, there is nothing that breaches the lower control limit, so that's okay. We do, however, have a data point that is above the upper control limit. So that would normally indicate an issue and indicate something that needs to be looked into further to understand what is causing that. Then you can go and fix it and ensure you don't have any further data points beyond any control lines for that reason and for that root cause. It's not to say you won't have any, because there might be another cause which you just haven't seen yet. You'll then get a further data point which is going to be outside your limits. You can go and take a look. So the human factor in quality management, always a big one. So training and competency development. Quality management begins with the team. Mortals make errors. Humans make errors. The phrase goes, it's human to err, which means, we're only people. We make issues. We make errors. I've just made one there. But that's just what happens. It's part of life. Robust onboarding, periodic competency assessments greatly reduce performance gaps. Kind of goes without saying. It's just part of having good processes with regard to your staff. Empowerment. This is the big one. Encouraging team accountability through decentralized decision making often leads to higher individual pride in maintaining quality. Now this one's quite important, as I've seen this used personally. So if you think about a normal company structure, it tends to be a bit of a pyramid. You've got the C-suite, the CEO, the executives, the directors, and then everyone else is down at the bottom. And decisions come from the top and just filter all the way down. And when you're at the bottom, you just get told what to do. However, what companies have started to look to do in order to improve quality is flip that triangle upside down and have the change come from the bottom and filter through to the CEOs, because those are the people on the front line. Those are the people in the trenches. Those are the people dealing with your customers, creating your products, delivering your services. If anyone knows what needs to change to improve quality, it's those people on the front line. So listen to them. So it's encouraging accountability and obviously cultural alignment. Companies with strong cultures, Toyota, often incorporate this ethos into their core business identity. So it's all about, as soon as you walk through those doors, you're empowered to make change and to take ownership and take pride in what you do and how you do it. And the change comes from the bottom. So integration with other knowledge areas, scope, cost, risk. Quality can't exist in isolation. It needs to have something else in order to exist. So you align it with the scope and the cost and risk management to ensure that it has value and a place. You've now got some application examples of quality management. Now I'm not going to run through them. You can run through them, obviously follow through the slides and the text, have a little look into these. But this will give you real, true-to-life examples of how quality management makes positive change and ensures project quality from start to finish. So you can have a little look at these here. Have a little read through. And then we'll have a quick look at the summary tables just to end here. So processes of project quality management. You've got quality planning. Obviously that's done at the start. Understanding your KPIs, understanding the benchmarks that you're working towards, what quality standards exist that you need to meet. Quality assurance, again, that's your constantly running drive to make sure that quality is adhered to and those benchmarks are met. Quality control, that is your actual review, your test, your inspections to define if something is of high enough quality or not. Continuous improvement, again, that's the lean practices. I was talking about Six Sigma and the lean and trying to constantly improve, make things leaner, remove waste from the process, understand where your quality shortfalls are, constantly looking to fix. And then documentation. Everything needs to be documented in a project, whether it's to do with scope, risk, budget, timelines, timeframes, communication plans, quality, everything needs to be documented. Because not only does that form a clear picture of what's happened up till now, but that documentation starts in the planning phase and that gets used as your blueprint all the way through. That can even then be taken on to the next project when you go and do your lessons learned. If you've documented and created solid processes, take them on to the next one. So a few techniques, so we've had a little look at those. The fishbone diagram, looking to identify the root causes. Six Sigma, it's all about the processes and all about removing waste and issues. Pareto analysis, looking at the most cost-effective, resource-effective way of dealing with problems and getting to the root of problems. Control charts, that's for your statistical analysis of your quantitative data points in order to make sure that they are not above or below any set controls. And then benchmarking. Compare processes with the industry best practice to improve standards. If you are not held to any industry standards, find out what everyone else is doing. Find out what the industry leaders are doing. Follow their example. If anything, try to beat them. Try to improve on their quality. Give yourself a unique selling point. Look at what they deliver and say, I can do better. I can raise the quality with X, Y, and Z. Now, advanced considerations, customer-centric quality, so aligning your deliverables with the customer's expectations, not only your own internal benchmarks and KPIs. Integration with project scope, so tying the quality objectives closely to your defined project deliverables to make sure it's all one succinct project delivery. Risk adjustments, incorporate risk mitigations into your quality planning. Cultural considerations, embedding quality management principles into the team culture, giving everyone the empowered mentality to drive for higher quality always. And of course, compliance with regulations, meeting or exceeding regulatory and legal standards. So ensuring that whatever industry you're in, whatever regulations it has, you need to be on or ideally above performing. Outperform the regulations. Don't always look to just sit on the regulatory line and say enough is enough. If you can do better, if you can raise quality standards, do it. So challenges. Poor requirement definition. We've spoken about this before. If something goes wrong with that communication with the customer, or the creation of the scope, or the understanding of the quality, it could lead to a poor understanding of the requirement that needs to be set, which then leads to misaligned quality, subpar outputs. If you don't understand the quality standards that you need to meet, and you then meet a lower bar, when you go to deliver that project, the customer's going to take one look at it and go, well, this isn't of high enough quality. What happened? And then opens up a whole can of worms and you have to go find out what happened, which is always fun. Cost constraints, resource skill gaps, resistance to quality processes, variance in production. Resistance to quality processes is one that you tend to find a lot, especially with larger projects and large kind of giants of enterprise, large global consortiums and companies tend to be very resistant to things like that, especially if they're used to doing things in a certain way. You then come in and expect them to do something different, can cause clashes. But with good communication, everything is solvable. So you've got some application examples of quality management. So you've got some use cases of mobile app development, construction projects, healthcare systems, e-commerce supply chains, and aerospace manufacturing. Take a look at the techniques used, the outcome achieved, the success factor that was achieved, and obviously the application benefit. What did that mean in the real world to that customer? That should give you an idea of why we do these things, why we need to make sure that quality standards are upheld, met, and always looked to be improved on. So have a good look at those. And now, once again, you're on to multiple choice questions. So go ahead, give these a go. If you do struggle, go back through the course, have a look at the area that you struggled on, see if you can identify why, focus in on the things that you need to focus on. And if you continue to struggle, as I've said before, get in touch, reach out if you need further support, further guidance. We are here to help. So thank you very much. We'll see you for the next lesson.